start with the video. All right, good morning. How many of you here are aware of TikTok? Before you came for the sessions, obviously. I mean, before the keynote. Because the keynote, I mean, we heard the keynote, we thought maybe we don't need our keynote. It was all about TikTok, right? How many of you are users? Wow. Any creators, content creators here on TikTok? I see 1, 2 hands. Okay, great. This is awesome. Disclaimer first. See, the upside and the downside of coming in for a keynote on day 2 is 90% of what you want to say has already been said, right? Now, the positive aspect there is a lot of what you want to reinforce, other people already believe in by the second day. So like I said, the keynote session, you've all heard about how hurdle creates wealth, brag-worthy proposition, you heard about the 4 degrees of separation. All of that is very relevant to our platform. So we are going to reference that somewhere or the other. But as Cyrus said yesterday, I want to assure you guys that was not a setup. So we were not covering Kunal's conveyance, as he said yesterday, right? So that's clear. But what we'll start with, what I want to actually talk about today is just the massive transformation that content creation and sharing, just that whole ecosystem, what it's going through. And I think we talked a little bit about that when David Freeman's keynote yesterday, when he talked about emotion and the power of storytelling. Just to give you guys an idea, and you hear some of these terms related to the big data ecosystem, but on all 3 dimensions, which is basically velocity, volume, variety, the kind of data that we are creating today is going through a big change. And to give you guys an idea, I was reading a report the other day that said we'll be creating about 50 gigs of data per human being per day by 2025. Right? That's 50 gigs. And that's impressive, and I'll tell you why, because till about a year back, if I had to buy a 50 gig hard drive, I had to save money, right? And now 5 years from now, we are all going to do that every day. What is this data that we are creating? It's basically text, images, but increasingly now it's video. And that is what the platform is about. You'll be surprised by 1/3 of all internet activity, 1/3, 30% of all internet activity today is consuming, sharing, transferring online videos. That's the impact. So with that said, what are we going to cover today? Very, very simple. We are going to talk about what this content is, who is creating this content, which those of you that have probably been a part of the UGC, the Gen Z session actually yesterday, would have heard a little bit about that. And then what are the implications to all of us as players in the ecosystem, as marketers, as buyers and sellers of media. But it's going to be very, very simple, very, very crisp. So like I said, the first most important theme for us is the entry point for the new internet users, UGC. Right? So my question to you, I mean, just something to provoke a little bit of thought, is till about a few years back, say, go back 2 to 3 years, and the point of entry for a new internet user was content consumption. Right? You You would get on a mobile phone, you'd get access to data, you would start maybe by reading news, by watching videos, correct? Most of you agree? Now think back 2 or 3 months. The point of entry now is content creation, right? So the first time you get access to a smartphone, to data, the first instinct is, I want to create and I want to share. And that is going to be a big transformation in the near future. Why is this so relevant? Is because user-generated content has huge implications. So there are multitude of reports available. We didn't want to quote numbers, but about 60% of the users find user-generated content from within their peer network very influential, highly trustworthy, and much more than brand-created content, right? In fact, some users, when researched, they said we are 12 times more likely to engage with an advertisement if it has user-generated content versus just a brand telling us what to do. Right? And what sets user-generated content aside? So I was thinking about this. There are a lot of words you could use. So for example, there's relevancy, there's recency. It's obviously more authentic, but like I said, the volume, the relatability is also huge, right? And this is how we understand or explain this transition, right? When the internet came about, and I know David, and then some of the sessions that asked you, right? When did the internet come about? So 1990s, the first entities to contribute to the growth of internet were actually research institutes and educational institutes, right? That was the purpose. And then gradually professional content came on board, right? So people with studios, record labels, all of that, right? So that was the interaction, the point of engagement. But if you look now, it is more about user-generated content, right? You'll be surprised, but 50%, right? That's half of all video streamed to smartphones today is user-generated content. And none of us hardly even realize that. But even more startling and probably concerning to some of us is 90% of that content is actually shared. So you share it with someone else once you've consumed that content, right? So that's just the impact. And who's creating this content, right? The session yesterday, right, about Gen Z, the youth, the young users, first time access to internet. Those are the ones that are creating this content. This just is a landscape of what this ecosystem for India is going to be. 50% or more of our internet users are in that segment. And there is a strong need to create content because they want to be a part of the story, to express themselves. And that drives, obviously, engagement. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about this generation, right? And when marketers and behavioral psychologists and data experts, when they talk about this generation, a lot of adjectives used, right? So some of them they're very entrepreneurial, free-spirited, go-getters, they dream big. And then what do you hear on the other end of the spectrum is they're a little edgy, quirky, always distracted, correct? The thing is, this segment is the most important segment for everyone. And the reason for that is here, right? Not only are they the largest segment, as I said, in terms of access to data, access to internet, they also control a lot of buying power. And at the expense of repetition, I think Kunal dwelled on this subject quite a bit, is that this is not just the decision to buy something, this is the decision to influence someone else's purchase because you are that point of access to data in your household, right? So that is this user. The only challenge is they hate ads. And some of you here who have been in this field for long enough, you would have heard of terms like banner blindness, right? Anyone here heard of banner blindness? It's learned behavior, right? It's human evolution. This is how we've survived for millions of years, is we learn very, very quickly, right? So when today a page loads, the first reaction is, oh, ad, ignore. This is what I want to read, right? But there's another principle in usability engineering. For those of you that have UX background, it's called the Gestalt proximity principle. What does it say? It says things that are closer together are assumed to be related. That's how our mind works, right? Things closer together must be similar, right? If you're sitting next to someone, might have similar interests. The problem with that is the users today very quick to judge web content. So if there are 3 ads versus 1 ad, you are already a very low quality page, right? So that's a lot of constraint. But thanks to Kunal's keynote, we know that whenever there is a hurdle or a constraint, what comes next? Wealth creation. What do these users want to do? Is that they want to record, create, share, interpret, transform the content. They want to be a part of the story versus just consuming a story. And that's where the opportunity is. And I get a lot of questions. When I started with TikTok, I started recently, but I get a lot of questions about what is driving aggressive growth? Why is there so much engagement? And part of this explains that. So, quick video. Nice. So what does that say? Obviously, Gen Z is very distracted. We've talked about that. There are stats on the slide. At any given point in time, they have access to at least 5 screens. And attention span is about 8 seconds. In fact, a lot of research is being done on how that is also reducing now. But I think the opportunity there is to make them a part of your story, is to get them involved and engaged in a creative pursuit, which is what this slide really says, is that short form video is the right tool, is the right media, because that is what they really want to engage with. So let me ask you a question, obviously. Slides is gyan, but from our personal experience, when, as human beings, are we the most attentive, most engaged with media? People here, I'm sure there are a lot of people here who create content, right, on social networks, right? On professional networks, personal networks, all of you create content, just a show of hands. Post content. How do you feel when you're creating content? You're very engaged, and I'll tell you why, is because you're doing something that you're passionate about. It's creative. Ask someone who's been a sports person. When they run or when they do whatever they're doing and they excel at it, what are they thinking about? The answer typically would be very less. They're not thinking too much about anything, is because they're in that activity, right? That drives excellence, right? And so think about these users. They are actively engaged in this activity. And that's why, and that's how you get their undivided attention, right? Because passion drives engagement. And obviously, it shows higher CTRs, higher engagement. But let me play this video, and then I'll tell you a little bit of the background story for this.
Hi guys, so 1 million Audition is back with a bang, and this time they have the most beautifully crafted Honor 10 smartphones as their content partners. Auditions are starting from the 17th of May, that is today, and it will end on the 31st of May. And there are many categories to take part in, such as food reviews, special skills, sports, singing, and my favorite, wines. So join the 1 million Audition and stand a chance to win this beautiful phone, Honor 10, Beauty in AI. So go ahead, make amazing videos. Bye.
So obviously, this was like a challenge for users to create content about a new mobile phone that was going to be launched. Just to give you an idea, 600 million is the video views that we got in a span of 1 week. And this was last year when TikTok wasn't even that much of a craze, right? So there were about between 10 to 20,000 people that actually engaged in creating a video. And think of how involving that is, but about 600 million views. So with that, again, a provocative question, very much related to what Kunal covered today. My question to you is, in today's world, is it necessary that a brand is either a sponsored or a pushed imagery in your minds? Or could it be just a collective expression of users' relevance? Right? The question's deep, right? All of you have an image of a brand in your mind, like close your eyes 2 seconds, think of a brand that you really love. The first thing that comes to your mind will not be a product. It'll be what that brand either stands for or something else, your experience with that brand. And so is it not possible to bring the users together and say, what is your brand expression? What do you relate with the most versus saying, I'm going to pay someone to create that image in your mind? Right? It's possible, right? That is exactly what's happening on the platform. Right? These users prefer to co-create content. They want to be part of that story. They just don't want to create, just want to consume content that you've created for them. This actually is the way the feed just works. So basically, if there's a hashtag challenge, if there's content, not just another So obviously this was for Realme that we did. Again, about 700 million views. A lot of users collaborated together, created a lot of content. The hashtag was trending very heavily on the platform. We think there are 4 pillars to success. with Gen Z and specifically in this world of short form video. And that's what on the slide for you. So we think the key is short form video, right? Like I said, the attention span is 8 seconds, maximize it, factor of 2 comes to about 15 seconds. That is what the platform is all about. It has to be influencer led, right? And again, repetition, but Kunal talked about how influencers play a very key role today. It has to be native, because if you have an ad, they know it's an ad, they've learned it over a period of time. And the last piece is you involve them in defining what your brand is, right? Because that drives passion, passion drives engagement. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about short form video and how we see it, and what's happening on our platform. And
3, 2, 1, girls wanna have fun. I wanna have some fun. Some fun. I wanna have some. 3, 2, 1, girls wanna have fun. If the man don't dance, he's done. I wanna go out, dress up real nice, and find someone who's ready to run.
so with that said, it's obviously very, very clear we've had huge, massive growth over the last 1 year, and across countries. And the slide says how many countries, regions, there are how many languages that this platform today is in, and we were trending in the top 5 for downloads. For India, we've been at the very top for the last 1 year, right? Some of the reasons we've covered, but I think if you were to ask me what's the key takeaway, what are the 3 pillars, it is just this, right? There's creativity, there's content, but most important, and the part that a lot of us sometimes ignore, is the ability to share. So it is still social, right? And you saw it in that video, right? The person's responding to a content that someone else has created. Why? Because they want to be part of that narrative as much as the creator of the content. And that is what drives engagement on this platform. So let's talk about each one of these a little bit. So when it comes to creativity, obviously the platform allows for a lot. And the way I try to explain this, and it doesn't always succeed, is there have always been very massive barriers to creative content, right? So barriers to entry, if you want to be a creator, it was always very, very difficult. So think of the 3 degrees of separation that Kunal talked about, right? So let's say you wanted to post something on another social network. It would take you 10 minutes to create the right kind of content. You use filters, you show it to your family and friends. People then validate it, right? Someone will say, you look good. Someone will say, not quite your kind of content. And then you will post it, and then you will skip your heartbeats as you wait for your first likes and engagement, right? All of that is think of the past, because this is just 15 seconds. You can do it on the app. It's very, very easy, right? The filters are in there. The lenses are in there. Any effects that you want to see is in there. And by the way, on the back end, we use a lot of the fancy terms that you might be hearing, right? So computer vision, natural language processing. There's heavy, heavy machine learning happening on the back end. But that is the key to the success of what's happening on the platform. So. And the next piece, like I said, is content, right? So it's a lot of different themes, a lot of how users want to identify, for example, music tracks or titles or subjects and how they relate with it. We have a few examples here. And I think how it all comes together is because of the ability, like I said, to share, right? Someone's responding to your content, or you are engaging with someone else's content. If you drill down, it is the basic human nature, the basic need for appreciation, for engagement, right? That is what's driving this. I already see a lot of smiles. That's good, because clearly, and we don't shy away from this, our platform is all about fun, right? So it's 15 seconds, quick, short, and it's fun. That is what drives engagement, that we think is core to human nature. So all the smiles, very, very appreciated here. I want to talk a little bit next about, does it drive better engagement, right? I mean, all of this is good, but what do we do as marketers? What do we do as members of this ecosystem, ad tech, ad agencies? It clearly drives a lot more engagement, a lot more interest than the standard ads that we've come to see. One thing that stood out for me from David's keynote yesterday is when he said, I bought something last year, the ad's still following me, right? That happens quite a lot, right? But that, at least, I'm proud to say, is not what our platform is all about, right? We'll move ahead. This is the other big innovation, and this obviously goes ignored because it's such a simple thing. And I personally feel the best innovation in the world is when you see something new and you say, why didn't anyone else think about this? But why didn't anyone else think that if there is native content, it should play full screen on a mobile video, right? It shouldn't appear like a video. It should be engaging, right? It should be something that the user still wants to consume. And that's what this is that this is just a new ad format, but it is so obvious, so simple, anyone could have done it, right? And this, the last part, right? Like I said, it's all about content, it's all about creativity, it is about users engaging in a story that drives success for us. With that, we'll just get to one case study because time, as they say, waits for none. The case study I want to talk to you about is a hashtag challenge that we've done very, very recently, actually. It was just concluded about 2 weeks back. And it was this. It was, so the back, it's not a presentation if nothing breaks, right? Okay, now, fine. Now we're good. Okay, so this was a very edgy and quirky theme, a brief from this brand. What they wanted to do was, there was this limited release of 5 different versions of their product, but each version had their own personality. And to go with each of these versions, they created a rap song. And they wanted people to engage with that and then show and prove and participate to see how that applies to real life. So this is clean and clear, as you can see. What we did is we did a hashtag challenge for them with these 5 rap songs as the personality for the brand. So just to give you an idea, and I'll step aside. So unbottle apna swag, that's the hashtag. Users could create videos, they could upload them. Obviously, they could interact with the hashtag directly. So without getting too verbose about this, there are only 2 videos that will help you understand just how it was executed on the platform and the interaction. So the next screen actually is just how the hashtag challenge page looks. I mean, it has some details about the products, what is expected of the users, how they can participate to win goodies and to get some appreciation from the influencers. And then when you scroll, you can actually launch a video that a user's created. So quickly, here it is.
Who my fun queen? बताऊं what's a scene? Fun जहाँ मैं वहाँ you know what's a deal? Me and my girls मचाते हैं शोर. मेरे around you will never be bored. थोड़ी शरारत, थोड़ा fun, yeah. I never leave till the party's done.
Right, so some of the thoughts that should drive in your mind probably is going to be, this is almost studio quality, right? Would you all agree? At least a little bit, right? This is really high quality content. And all of this is enabled just because of the app. And by the way, this is just 15 seconds. It is never more than 15 seconds, right? Some of the results, right? So there are numbers on this slide, but when was the last time you saw a campaign that had 2 billion views? There's 2 billion views to the music videos that the users created. And huge engagement, obviously, on the hashtag challenge page. But then I know the question in your minds would be, these are good intermediate metrics. What does it do for the brand? I mean, end of the day, the bottles have to sell, right? And so that's actually the next slide, right? So there's 9% uplift in purchase intent. There's 100% message association, right? And this is a third-party brand lift study that was done, exposed versus unexposed, pretty standard in our industry nowadays. So that's the kind of impact that's possible. One data point that I've ignored, and that's the most startling thing, is that the typical hashtag challenge for us is only 3 days. So 3 days, 2 billion views, some 10,000 fans acquired, and there were 2.6 million videos that were created. 2.6 million users interacted with this brand. So that's just the reach and the impact. And why does that all happen is because of everything that I've said in the last 20 minutes is because they want to co-create. They want to associate with your brand, and they want appreciation. Right, with that, I mean, it's time to end. I'll end with a short video. It has to be fun, obviously. That's our spirit. So here we go.
स्ट्राइक है तो तुम फिर आज नहीं आ पाओगी? एक सेकेंड, अबे आज तो टैक्सी की स्ट्राइक है, तू कैसे आया?
That's it. That's our platform, guys. Thank you for being so attentive. I was told this before the session. I've been reminded again, no questions, but I'm on booth 21. I'm very willing to talk to you. So please come by, stop by, and speak to us. Thank you again. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sachin. Thank you for that.